Okay, let me do a little talk, a little update. It's Thursday afternoon. I guess about 3:30. It's windy. I saw some of my friends. I'll do this note real quick just for those who do websites and Google them. When I first started all these video sites, which those of you that follow some of our websites, I added some links and I was testing different sites. Google, I wanted to get away from, I still have YouTube, and I still have Blogger, and I still have Google Drive. And initially, when I was messing with different sites, I still have videos that I will leave on Google Drive, but I'm trying to get away from having everything tied in, and I don't have everything tied into one company. But it's real important to, when you see a lot of the manipulation in media, and which indeed does take place in social media. So I was trending away, but I gave it a shot to like put all of the past videos in one collection, and it just wasn't working. It takes like 6 days to do it, and then when your computer has the automatic updates, so. But either way, it's Google Drive, and I've learned a lot on videos and websites. But maybe they intend to do well, but they integrate everything into your Google Drive. And if you're utilizing it for videos, it's just not real functional. And I learned that there are many others that are really what you would want, because I have so many different sites. All I really need is a video site that whenever I get a new computer, all you do is you log into whatever, Dropbox or SkyDrive or Mega or whatever, but I won't use Mega too much. But Google Drive makes it so complicated. And then I also read I upgraded, it's not a lot, but to 2 TB, which is a lot, but the price was like 10 a month. And then I downgraded back to the $2 a month plan, which is very cheap. But then they have like systems where those of you that use Gmail, like I use, if you downgrade and you pass your limit, they stop your Gmail. Look, most people that use Gmail, it's very manipulative. So I'm trying to trend away from having too much in one company. And that's another thing that we should look at in general. But this is just an update. Of course, I'm honest with all of the things you see me talk about, all the things you hear me share. Today, I mentioned this already, it's not a secret. My daughter had gotten married last year, and I did not know her husband that well. But his name is Domingo, and I like working with people, whether they be Mexican, whether they be Anglo, whether they be white. And all the years of my ministry was people that were in trouble. And just as much as I felt bad for Domingo in a sense when I learned some of his story, and then I'll talk about something that I think might be important for people that watch these videos. But he was raised by like a single mom, and he had some problems. It was problematic, the reason why he was with his mom, and his mom was very sick. And Domingo, when he was young, he got in trouble and did 5 years in prison, and he's like 30-something now. And a few months back, he had robbed a convenience store, which is bad. And then as I asked my daughter, I said, I can visit him if you want him. And then he got 60 years in prison. And I mentioned that didn't seem something seemed very wrong in that. I said, how could he get 60 years in prison for that? Now today, my daughter asked me yesterday, some other court-appointed attorney, after the settlement of the 60 years went through, took his case. The man that I would hate to get the name wrong, but I believe his initial court-appointed attorney maybe was a man by the name of Dorsey. But that first lawyer, of course, my daughter, meaning Domingo's wife, wanted to go to the trial and speak on behalf of him. And the lawyer said, we'll notify you when the trial comes, and he lied. Second, he did not permit any testimony on the behalf of that he was a troubled young boy, got in trouble. He didn't permit that. I'm wondering if he spoke behind the scenes to the prosecutor's office and they did something very wrong here. Because today I went and wrote a statement with my daughter on his new court-appointed attorney, which somebody in the system realized, oh, they did something here, which did concern me. And so I wrote a statement, an honest statement. I said, I don't know Domingo well. I said, and I feel very bad. I didn't think wrong, or I work with people on the street. I said, but 60 years, and I wrote that in the statement. I said, you basically have said you've given up all hope of any future recovery of anything with a sentence like that. This was for his new court-appointed attorney. Why they gave him a new one, somebody must have realized they did something here. Now, when Mr. Gonzalez, Mark Gonzalez, became our DA, we had a very bad history in Corpus Christi with former DAs. We just had the Innocence Project here a few weeks ago defending, and it was the first time the Innocence Project actually defended a former prosecutor. The reason he was in our city of Corpus Christi, in Nueces County, was this former prosecutor who worked for a previous DA by the name of Mark Skirka. He was retaliated against, and I think he was fired because he said we are withholding exculpatory evidence illegally, meaning the DA's office and the prosecutor's office out of Nueces County was withholding evidence. This came out in the last 5 years. That was a former DA by the name of Mark Skirka, who was no longer there. There was a lot of wrongdoing. And like I said, the Innocence Project was here defending that former prosecutor because they retaliated against him. Now, when Mark Gonzalez, and the more I'm seeing, I'm just going to be honest with you, I have a lot of questions about what they're doing. I made a note, I guess yesterday, on one of the posts on the Eric Tunches, who is just some guy running for office, and then the DA's office announced they indicted him. Kohler Times said it was a federal indictment for a promotion of prostitution, but it was wrong, okay? It wasn't a federal indictment. It was out of the county, but it was indeed a grand jury indictment for a felony, but that doesn't make it federal, okay? We happen to have a federal courthouse in Corpus Christi. And Tunches said this is targeting, that Gonzalez had targeted him. I didn't believe it. I thought Mr. Gonzalez was an upright person until I just shared with you that I think that they did something in the case of my son-in-law, who is Hispanic. And you should defend justice for everybody. The whole mindset of some of the things that we in society, the way we look at people, I really did begin questioning what they're doing again. When I read, I mentioned, I don't know, the Daily Show wanted to have me interviewed, and all. When they came here to interview the DA months ago, they had contacted me. It was legitimate, and it was the producer for the Daily Show. Maybe they know I speak out on criminal justice issues. And I didn't even respond, but it was nice, and I made videos on it. This is the Daily Show. And when I saw the DA's comments that was reported in Kohler Times, it was troubling to me. It was troubling when I saw the way, like the maturity level. Whether it was a huge mistake and whether they're making a lot of mistakes here. I would just say for the case of my son-in-law, Mingo, and for a 60-year prison sentence, and for you Color Times, you should also, I don't just critique you for when I see bias against maybe a white judge in favor, but at the same time, we want fairness even for Mexican people, black people, white people. We want to treat a white judge the same as a black judge or a Hispanic judge. We want equity. And it's just so strange that another court-appointed attorney, somehow they looked, oh no, something they did here. And they said, come on in and you need to make statements on behalf which the family wanted to, meaning my daughter wanted to go to his day of trial, and they didn't notify her. So this is just an update. There's a couple of other, yesterday when I was driving to see where some of my friends would be, I forgot there was another killing that took place besides the few others I mentioned. And I remembered it when I went around the turnaround here where I live, because the officers asked some of my friends about another, do you know who that was? Supposedly he was from San Antonio, this other person that was killed. Not the most recent ones, I never even mentioned this one. And there was never a report on that. When I look at the national situation we're in, and when I read some of the ridiculousness of you colluded to influence an election because you basically made a confidentiality agreement and you used your lawyer to make it, which many people do those things. I've not done that. And then you said you instructed your lawyer, meaning you instructed him to illegally break campaign finance. Any legal mind would tell you that's a joke what they're doing nationally in that particular thing. But I wouldn't have to get into it. For those that have their opinions formed on one and on the other, I understand that. We try to be educated, just in everything. So, anyway, I'll have some more. Should be uploading. All those links should work. Tonight I will be, I know some of you are getting a lot of links that I share. I'm trying different sites and all. Everything should be on one of my sites, which is OneDrive. They're already linked to the websites that are named. I have a page on Blogger and WordPress, which is independent from Google, Blogger, YouTube. It's called Cloud Links. Okay, OneDrive should have them all up. The technological, I understand, and those that are not familiar, when you're on Google, you sign into Google accounts. And they integrate it so much, so when you sign in, for instance, when I'm on YouTube, I have 3 YouTube channels, but I'm only going to use the main one that I've been using for a long time. You actually sign in on Google, then you sign out. And then if you sign in on another wrong Gmail account, it pulls up your entire Google account or blog and says this is empty because everything's integrated. And you signed in, you have about 3 or 4 different connections when you're on your Gmail and you sign in with a password. For those that do this, it is the most complicated. Just in general, some might not be. It's a lesson that they made things a lot more difficult. Maybe trying to improve things. Maybe trying to have things. They wanted to get everything together. And I read up on it this last year, and Google does that. Like if you downgrade and you go below, you have so many videos on 150 GB videos. Then you downgrade to the 100 GB plan. Okay, you just went over, the 50 GB, but everything's frozen, and they send you a notice. Anybody that Gmails you, you will not receive notice. We will send back the message to the sender saying you no longer have enough storage in your Google, OneDrive, Gmail in order to receive email anymore. It's very, very manipulative. I'm concerned that we still might have a problem here. I hoped, particularly, besides all the other things, particularly again with the prosecutor's office out of this county. I didn't watch Mark Gonzalez on The Daily Show, but I read about it, and supposedly it was like a joke that he was still a member of a biker gang. Because he was a defender of bikers and all. And look, I have friends that have past lives in gangs and all, and I try to work with them, but not to be like a part of it. This tattoo is Corpus Christi Outreach Ministries. I got that to tell the guys. I had some friends that they felt bad about their affiliated tattoos they had over the years, and I said, I'll do that so they can, say, look, we can identify. This is not the city of Corpus. The Corpus Christi Outreach Ministries is what that represents. But it's the body of Christ, a city that comes down from God out of heaven. Okay, we don't exalt the natural cities. But I feel like they did something in my case of my son-in-law. And he's Hispanic, and I'm not here just to defend him because he's my son-in-law. I thought 60 years. 60 years. And my daughter's not up on everything. They don't watch all my videos. But some other court-appointed attorney must have said, wait a minute, And they themselves made the decision to say, look, get somebody else in. They might have talked to that initial guy. I don't know if his name is Dorsey. I said, well, why didn't you take any statements from a family that, for some reason, whether it's an Eric Tunches, for some reason, how you can have a 2-year-old promotion of prostitution charge. We had multiple crimes the last 2 days that I've not even commented on. I want to try and do my walk. You say, what benefit are any of these things that you do, John, when you speak on these things? The benefit is you want to hold people accountable, and primarily you don't want people to use their own personal agendas. In the case of, because I read all the news, in the national case, there's a particular judge, General Flynn, and the whole Trump thing and the whole, but when General Flynn was interviewed by the FBI, Andrew McCabe, who has now since been fired, and the FBI and Mueller's people notified him that they did not want him to have an attorney present. Meaning when General Flynn initially was going to be interviewed about the whole Russian collusion thing, which now he's going to be sentenced because they said he lied, the FBI told him that they did not want him to have a lawyer. And General Flynn thought, well, maybe I should have some representation because the FBI, Comey and his people, they notified Flynn and said, well, if you bring a lawyer, we're going to have to get the Justice Department involved in this. But just talk to us, we just want to, and they kind of tricked him. Now the lawyer in the case of Flynn, because he's going to be sentenced, he just put out an order that by tomorrow, meaning Friday, that judge, black judge, wants all the notes of the interview from the FBI. And he wants to look at all that. It's possible, I think this Mueller and that group, I think they've done a lot of wrongdoing. I think even that one action I just explained, that a judge, I guess a federal judge, but out of whatever, forget the state, but he's in the sentencing of Mr. Flynn, and he just ordered Mueller and his team. Now, as you read the news on Google, some of the liberal sites said, the crazy judge. Now, the honest news would be, there's serious questions. And that's the manipulation of Google. That's really why I wanted to trend away from them. and I'm attempting to a degree, but I see it in just what I shared with you. How once they get you to utilize a service, then they let you know if you downgrade, your Gmail's not going to work anymore. How many people use Gmail? Do you sign up for Gmail? But if you downgrade, they say your Gmail won't work no more. They were a manipulation. So hopefully we'll settle some of that. There are always options. That's why I'm not tied into just one. I'm grateful I still have the YouTube and all. But that's why you always have options. What I would say is our local media and our Color Times and all, at times they did well in trying to shine the light on things. And I've noticed very much that when the new DA came in, and I seen him at the Catholic Mass once, and I go to the cathedral as well as the other churches when I do visit the different ones, and I just felt good about it. But I'm beginning to question, because my son-in-law, okay, and it was another court-appointed attorney. Somebody in the system said, "Oh, they did something," and it wasn't my son-in-law from what I understand, that said, "Let me get another attorney." I think somebody working in this place said, "Oh, they did it again. Let's get somebody else to." And so I just wrote a statement, but they should have done all that. And so I think the light shines, no matter how much of an image you want to have. I thought it was so childish when I read Mr. Gonzalez, Mark Gonzalez. It was almost like a kid writing on Facebook. And I thought, oh, what have you done now? I'm assuming they're going to vote him out. And I'm not, I wasn't against him. He wanted to be progressive in doing things. And bringing equity into the system. I don't know if he has the maturity level at all to associate it even in a comical show. To say, supposedly on the Daily Show, they had jokes like he was still connected to the biker gangs. Look, just in the sense of, I was a supervisor at the fire department when I was temporary captain. I never promoted a captain. I didn't want captain. It's not, you're out of the ranks, when you're a captain. But initially I became the next best thing, which was engineer driver. You still fought fires, but that was like the best rank to have at the fire department. But and I was young when I promoted, very young. I was like the youngest one to promote, and at that time in the history of the Kingsville Fire Department. And people always wondered about maturity level. And I was young, in early 20s, just on the job for 2 years. You got to be there 2 years before you promote. And then I scored very high on the tests. So, John's going to get it. He's too. But there are legitimate questions and positions of responsibility in whatever sphere you're in. That are you mature enough to do this? I'm questioning a lot now. I'm questioning a lot. If there was any retaliation against a Hispanic young man that I didn't know very well. He stayed here a few times, gave him a ride, once or twice. And one day he was talking to me. He said, "Oh, I'd like to work on cars, John." He wanted me to maybe be more of like his father-in-law. And I liked Domingo. I didn't dislike him. And then I felt bad because I maybe didn't do enough and he was from a broken family, and his mother, she's very sick, like gonna die. My daughter's trying out the money. And in all of that, and you Color Times and all, you had at times tried to advocate, even for the young Hispanic, that what redemptive thing does that do? 60 years for robbery? For going into his stripes? And maybe, I don't know, $20? I think the Eric Tunches thing on the promo, that should be investigated on that. The more I looked at it, I thought, how did you do something like that? And as God is my witness, you had murders going uninvestigated, meaning witnesses are available on the streets on a regular basis. And our Cooler Times has kind of exposed cold cases. Look, there's a difference between a cold case and just a huge problem, meaning you're not even attempting to contact certain witnesses in murders of women. All right, that's the update.